Dr. Krylax adjusted the bioscanner on his forearm and peered out of the viewport as his ship descended through Earth's atmosphere. The scene below was a kaleidoscope of greens, rivers winding like shimmering veins through dense rainforests. His mandibles twitched in satisfaction. Primitive, but undoubtedly alive, he thought, the vibrant hues reminding him of tranquil ecosystems he had studied on other planets. This assignment would be a brief, pleasant diversion, a mere formality before moving on to more complex worlds. Cataloging venomous organisms, he muttered to himself, antenna-like sensory appendages flicking idly. Routine work. A Class 4 biodiversity planet. Likely a few stingers, outdated neurotoxins. Child's play. The ship's navigation system beeped, indicating touchdown. The Velecran scientist emerged from his vessel, his exoskeletal frame towering over the foliage. The rainforest was alive with sound chittering, buzzing, and distant roars. His scanners detected a high concentration of life forms. Fascinating, he murmured, making his first notes. The air was thick with moisture, clinging to his carapace. Still, he found the chaotic vitality of the environment quaint. It lacked the structured ecosystems of other planets he'd visited, but its abundance of life suggested untapped research opportunities. As he began scanning the undergrowth for specimens, his sensors flagged a large heat signature moving toward him. He turned just in time to see a human, a male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing a weathered field vest and cargo pants. The human froze mid-step, gripping what appeared to be a metal cylinder in one hand. Hi, the man said cautiously, tilting his head as if trying to process what he was seeing. Dr. Krylax straightened to his full height, easily a foot taller than the human. Greetings, terrestrial, his voice, though modulated, carried an alien resonance. I am Dr. Krylax, biologist of the Velecran species. I mean you no harm. The man blinked. Okay, sure, welcome to Earth, I guess. I'm Nathan Hargrove. He lowered the metal cylinder, which Krylax realized was a flashlight. So, what brings you to the middle of nowhere? Backpacking trip gone wrong, or... I am here to catalog your planet's venomous organisms for the Intergalactic Biodiversity Database, Krylax said plainly. Nathan let out a short laugh. Venom? Oh, buddy, you've come to the right place. Krylax tilted his head, his sensory appendages scanning Nathan's physiological responses. Your tone suggests amusement. Explain. Nathan wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead, grinning. Look, I'm a biologist too. Been out here studying frogs, snakes, and spiders for months. Let me tell you, everything on this planet either bites, stings, or poisons. It's like nature's got a grudge against us. Krylax emitted a clicking sound that passed for a laugh among his species. A jest, surely. I have studied venomous species across the galaxy. Few produce substances of significant potency. I suspect your terrestrial organisms are no exception. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Yeah, well, you might want to hold on to that confidence. Let me show you around. Dr. Krylax agreed, intrigued by the human's willingness to assist. Together they trekked through the dense rainforest, Nathan occasionally pointing out creatures hidden in the foliage. See that little guy, Nathan said, gesturing toward a tiny, brightly colored frog perched on a leaf. That's a golden poison dart frog. Its skin secretes enough toxin to kill 10 grown men. Krylax leaned in, scanning the frog with his bioanalyzer. The readout made him pause. The toxin was an alkaloid compound of extraordinary potency, capable of disrupting neural function at minuscule doses. Curious, Krylax admitted. Effective, but primitive. I have encountered similar compounds on... Hold that thought, Nathan interrupted, pulling him back. A snake, its scales gleaming in the filtered sunlight, slithered across the path. That's a fer de lance. One bite, and you're looking at necrosis, internal bleeding, maybe death if you don't get antivenom fast enough. Krylax scanned the snake. The venom's complexity, hemotoxins, cytotoxins, and neurotoxins combined was unprecedented. This level of biochemical sophistication is unexpected, he said, his confidence wavering slightly. Nathan smirked. Told you. And we're just getting started. Over the next several hours, Nathan introduced Krylax to a cavalcade of venomous creatures, spiders with necrotic venom, wasps that paralyze their prey, and even plants capable of delivering painful stings. Each time, Krylax's bioscanner registered venom profiles more advanced than anything he had encountered before. You're telling me these organisms evolved independently? Krylax finally asked, his tone a mix of disbelief and fascination. Sure did, Nathan replied. Earth's been around for billions of years. Plenty of time for evolution to go nuts. Krylax stopped to make a detailed log entry. This level of biodiversity is unparalleled. And the sheer number of venomous species. It suggests a highly competitive ecological dynamic. Translation: everything's trying to kill everything else, Nathan said with a chuckle. As they continued, Krylax found himself more cautious, his earlier dismissal of Earth's creatures replaced with genuine respect. The rainforest, once a quaint backdrop, now felt like a gauntlet of survival. When Nathan casually mentioned that even the platypus, a mammal, had venomous spurs, Krylax's sensory appendages drooped in defeat. "This planet," he said, "has more venomous species than any I have studied across the galaxy. It defies all probability." Nathan grinned. "Welcome to Earth, pal." By the time they returned to Nathan's camp, Krylax was deep in thought. He had planned to spend a single day cataloging specimens, but it was clear that Earth's venomous biodiversity would require weeks or longer to fully document. As the sun set, Krylax turned to Nathan. "Your assistance has been invaluable. I underestimated your planet. Its ecosystems are formidable." Nathan shrugged. We get by. Just don't touch anything without asking me first." The alien biologist made one final log entry. Earth is a unique anomaly, a crucible of evolutionary arms races. Its venomous species challenge my understanding of biological complexity. For the first time in his career, Krylax felt a mix of awe and trepidation. Earth was no routine assignment, it was a revelation. Dr. Krylax's scanner emitted a soft chirp as it locked onto a new target. He crouched low, his segmented legs folding neatly beneath him, and aimed the device at a small, unassuming creature perched on the underside of a broad, green leaf. "What is this one?" he asked, his voice tinged with professional curiosity. Nathan leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the tiny spider. "Oh boy," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "That's a Brazilian wandering spider. Around here we call it the banana spider." "Cute, huh?" The alien peered closer, his sensory appendages twitching. The spider was barely the size of his thumb, its legs delicate, body unremarkable. "Hardly imposing," he remarked. "Yeah, well, it doesn't need to be," Nathan replied. "That little guy's got venom that can cause paralysis, respiratory failure, and some other effects we don't need to get into right now." Krylax raised what might have been an eyebrow. If his species had any specificity, would be appreciated. Nathan scratched the back of his neck, clearly trying not to laugh. "Let's just say it can mess with your nervous system in ways that surprise people, and not in a good way." The bioscanner beeped again, displaying a detailed chemical breakdown of the spider's venom. Krylax's normally steady demeanor faltered. "This cannot be accurate," he muttered, rerunning the scan. "A neurotoxin of this potency? In a creature so small?" "Believe it," Nathan said, crossing his arms. "This thing's venom is like a molecular Swiss Army knife. Blocks calcium channels, overloads sodium ones, it's a mess. One bite, and you're in big trouble." Krylax reviewed the data again, his mandibles clicking softly in disbelief. "It is extraordinary. On most worlds, organisms this small rely on camouflage or speed for survival. A venom of this complexity is inefficient." Nathan snorted. "Yeah, well, evolution doesn't do efficiency here. It does overkill. That's kind of Earth's thing." The scientist straightened, still processing the implications. "If this is indicative of your planet's smaller predators, I am beginning to regret my dismissal of your earlier warnings." Nathan patted him on what passed for a shoulder. "Don't worry, Doc. You stick with me, and you might even make it out alive." They continued deeper into the rainforest, the air growing thicker and more oppressive. Krylax's scanners were constantly alive with activity, flagging countless organisms for study. Each new discovery seemed to challenge his understanding of evolutionary biology. "Check this out," Nathan said, pointing to a tree branch where a brightly colored snake lay coiled, its body blending flawlessly with the dappled sunlight. Krylax scanned it, his device identifying it as a coral snake. "Another venomous specimen." "Yup," Nathan confirmed. "Its venom's mostly neurotoxins. Pretty nasty stuff, shuts down your nervous system if you're not careful. But don't worry, they're shy. They only bite if you mess with them." Krylax gave the human a sidelong glance. "Your definition of don't worry is peculiar." Nathan chuckled. "You'll get used to it." As they moved on, Krylax's confidence in his protective exosuit was beginning to feel misplaced. He had assumed his advanced physiology and equipment would render him immune to Earth's dangers, but the sheer variety of toxins they had encountered suggested otherwise. The rainforest seemed almost eager to present new challenges. They came across a vivid green frog no larger than a coin, which Nathan identified as a Philibates terribilis, the golden poison frog. "Touch that one," Nathan said, "and you might as well start planning your funeral. Its skin's coated with enough batrachoxin to kill like 20 people." Krylax recoiled slightly, scanning the frog from a safe distance. "Does nothing here rely on conventional defense mechanisms?" Nathan shrugged. "Some do. But the flashy killers get all the attention." The rainforest didn't just teem with life, it pulsed with it. A cacophony of sounds and motion creating a constantly shifting tableau. Krylax was beginning to understand why humans like Nathan seemed to approach their own environment with equal parts reverence and caution. They had just reached a clearing when a sudden rustling nearby caught their attention. Before Krylax could react, Nathan grabbed his arm and yanked him back. A split second later, a snake struck out from the undergrowth, its fangs sinking into empty air where Nathan's leg had been. "Fer de lance," Nathan said, his voice tight. "That was close." Krylax's scanner identified the snake and displayed a venom profile as alarming as any they had encountered. "It delivers both hemotoxins and cytotoxins," he read aloud. "The effects are extreme." "Extreme's one word for it," Nathan said. "That thing's bite can turn your tissue to mush. Not fun." Krylax stared at the snake, which had slithered back into the shadows. "Your planet's evolutionary trajectory is concerning." Nathan laughed, though there was an edge to it. "You're telling me, welcome to Earth, where even the cute stuff can kill you." For the first time, Krylax found himself genuinely impressed by the human survival instincts. "Your ability to navigate such a hostile environment is commendable. Were it not for your intervention, I would likely have been envenomated several times over by now." Nathan shrugged. "It's all about paying attention. You spend enough time out here, you learn to spot the patterns." They eventually made their way to Nathan's research station, a modest structure tucked into the forest. Inside, the humans showed Krylax a series of tanks and enclosures containing various venomous species. "This is where I do my work," Nathan explained. "Studying these guys isn't just about knowing what to avoid. We've actually found ways to use their venom to help people. Medicine, mostly. Painkillers, blood pressure meds, even treatments for heart attacks." Krylax's sensory appendages twitched with renewed interest. "You have weaponized these toxins for the purpose of healing." "Pretty much," Nathan said. He pulled out a vial containing a clear liquid. "Take this. It's derived from the venom of that fer de lance we dodged, helps dissolve blood clots, saved a lot of lives." The alien scientist was silent for a moment, processing this new information. "Your species continues to defy my expectations," he finally said. "To take something inherently harmful and repurpose it for the greater good. It is a remarkable display of ingenuity." Nathan grinned. "Thanks, Doc. We're not all bad." As they worked together in the lab, Krylax couldn't help but feel a newfound respect for the human and his chaotic, venom-laden planet. Despite his initial skepticism, he was beginning to understand why Earth, with all its dangers, was worth studying. It was a place of contradictions, lethal, yet brimming with life, hostile, yet full of potential. And for the first time in his career, Dr. Krylax felt something he hadn't anticipated: genuine admiration for a species not despite their flaws, but because of them. Dr. Krylax tightened the seals on his protective suit, the faint hiss of pressurization now a near constant companion on their journey. His once confident demeanor had taken a noticeable hit since his first encounter with Earth's array of venomous species, and that was before Nathan suggested they expand their research to other ecosystems. "Deserts," Krylax said, his voice tinged with disbelief as the human packed a pair of wide-brimmed hats. "You are suggesting we venture into an arid wasteland where survival is dependent on limited resources, with likely an equally malicious ensemble of venomous fauna." Nathan tossed the hats into the pack with a grin. "Oh, you're gonna love it. The desert's where Earth really shows its creative side." He paused, clearly enjoying himself. "Besides, you haven't lived until you've almost stepped on a scorpion." Krylax stared at him. "Your enthusiasm for narrowly avoiding death is unsettling." Hours later, under the unrelenting blaze of the desert sun, Krylax found himself reconsidering his life choices. The dry air clung to his exosuit, and he had to constantly adjust the suit's cooling system to compensate. Nathan, meanwhile, seemed entirely unbothered, whistling a tune as he scanned the horizon for movement. There, Nathan pointed to a patch of sand ahead where a single, solitary scorpion scuttled out from beneath a rock. Meet the Deathstalker. Its venom's a mix of neurotoxins. Packs a punch, even for humans. Krylax scanned the creature, his bioanalyzer revealing a venom profile composed of compounds that disrupted ion channels with terrifying efficiency. This level of toxicity in an organism this size is absurd, he muttered. What evolutionary pressures could possibly justify such chemical warfare? Survival, Nathan said simply. Out here, there's no margin for error. It's kill or be killed, and scorpions don't mess around. The alien scientist stepped back cautiously as the scorpion disappeared beneath the sand. I am beginning to suspect your planet runs on a philosophy of escalating hostility. Nathan laughed. You're not wrong. But hey, it keeps things interesting. The desert revealed creature after creature. Nathan pointed out the Sidewinder, a snake that moved with mesmerizing sideways undulations to avoid sinking into the sand. Then came the Gila monster, a stout lizard with venom-laden saliva that delivered a slow, painful bite. By the time Nathan crouched to examine a tarantula hawk wasp, a massive insect with iridescent wings, Krylax was keeping an increasingly wary distance. What now, he asked, his tone bordering on exasperation. This, Nathan said, gesturing to the wasp as a tarantula hawk. It's got one of the most painful stings on the planet. They use it to paralyze tarantulas so they can lay their eggs inside. Real nightmare fuel. Krylax scanned the wasp, his appendages curling reflexively as he read the data. Your species continues to coexist with these organisms voluntarily. Nathan straightened, brushing sand off his knees. Yeah, well, they don't bother you if you don't bother them. Mostly. Krylax made a sound somewhere between a sigh and a groan, his sensory appendages drooping. Your planet is a death trap masquerading as paradise. Nathan laughed so hard he nearly tripped over his own feet. Yeah, but it's our death trap. Their next stop was the ocean. Krylax approached it with equal parts trepidation and curiosity, his optical sensors adjusting to the glittering, endless expanse of water before him. Waves lapped at the shoreline, their rhythmic crashing deceptively peaceful. Beautiful, isn't it? Nathan said, gesturing to the horizon. And deadly, of course. Of course, Krylax muttered, scanning the water. I assume you have venomous species here as well. Nathan grinned. Oh, you have no idea. They donned wetsuits, Krylax modifying his protective gear to accommodate the aquatic environment, and ventured into the shallows. Nathan carried a small underwater camera, pointing out various marine life as they swam. That's a lionfish, Nathan said, gesturing to a vividly striped fish with flowing, spiny fins. Looks pretty, but those spines are venomous. Touch one and you'll regret it. Krylax scanned the lionfish, marveling at the intricacy of its venom delivery system. It is as if your planet's creatures have evolved to weaponize every conceivable defense mechanism. Nathan gave him a thumbs up. Wait till you see the box jellyfish. Moments later, they spotted one, a translucent, ethereal creature drifting lazily through the water. Nathan approached cautiously, staying well outside the reach of its nearly invisible tentacles. Krylax's scanner identified it as Charonex fleckeri, the box jellyfish, and the readout was alarming. This organism's venom can cause cardiac arrest within minutes, Krylax said, his voice tinged with disbelief. How does your species survive? Respect and caution, Nathan said simply. Plus, anti-venom helps, sometimes. As they swam back to shore, Krylax felt an odd sense of relief. For all its dangers, the ocean was undeniably beautiful, a world within a world teeming with life both alien and familiar. But his relief was short-lived. A sharp sting on his arm sent a jolt of pain through his body. He looked down to see a box jellyfish drifting away, its tentacles having brushed against his exposed limb where his suit had been damaged. His vision blurred as his system struggled to neutralize the venom. Nathan, he gasped, his voice weak. The human sprang into action, dragging Krylax onto the beach and pulling out a first aid kit. He quickly applied vinegar to the sting site, then pressed a cold pack against it while monitoring the alien's vital signs. Stay with me, Doc, Nathan said, his voice steady despite the urgency. You're tougher than you look. Krylax's optical sensors dimmed as the pain reached its peak. He felt his system stabilizing thanks in part to Nathan's rapid intervention. After several minutes, he managed to sit up, though his limbs felt heavy. You saved my life, he said, his voice faint. Nathan shrugged. It's what we do. You'd have done the same for me. Krylax studied the human, his sensory appendages twitching in thought. Your species is more resilient than I anticipated. To thrive on a planet so fraught with dangers is no small feat. Nathan grinned, handing him a bottle of water. Yeah, we're pretty stubborn like that. As they rested on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore, Krylax felt a newfound respect for the humans and for Earth itself. Its dangers were undeniable, but so were its wonders. It was a world of extremes, and Nathan's species had found a way to carve out a place within it. I underestimated your planet, Krylax admitted. And your people. Nathan laughed softly. Don't worry. Earth has that effect on everyone. Dr. Krylax sat at Nathan's camp table, surrounded by a chaotic array of field notes, vials, and scanning equipment. The alien's mandibles clicked faintly as he flipped through the holographic pages of his report, his sensory appendages twitching with concentration. Outside, the rainforest buzzed with its usual symphony of life, oblivious to the monumental conclusions he was preparing. This planet, Krylax said, his tone carrying a mix of exasperation and awe, has the highest concentration and diversity of venomous species I have ever encountered. Such an anomaly could redefine intergalactic biodiversity classifications. Nathan, lounging in a hammock nearby, glanced up from his battered paperback. Told you. Earth doesn't do anything halfway, so what are you going to tell your scientific council? Krylax gestured toward the glowing report hovering above the table. The data speaks for itself. Your planet's ecosystems are a crucible of evolutionary ingenuity. The implications for galactic biology are profound. Nathan smirked, propping himself up on one elbow. Profound, huh? Not bad for a little rock in the middle of nowhere. Krylax paused, considering the human's words. Indeed. Your species is particularly adept at adapting to this hostile environment. It is. Commendable, he looked directly at Nathan, his compound eyes reflecting the flickering light of the report. And surprising. Nathan chuckled, setting his book aside. We've had a lot of practice. You don't survive on Earth by being careless or boring. Krylax tilted his head, his sensory appendages curling thoughtfully. Your species has not only survived but thrived. Despite the dangers, you have found ways to coexist with even the most lethal organisms. Nathan grinned. Some might call that optimism. Others might call it stubbornness. Krylax clicked softly, a sound that Nathan had come to recognize as his species' equivalent of a laugh. Both, perhaps, but it is your ingenuity that stands out most. Your ability to study and even utilize venomous substances for medical purposes is extraordinary. Nathan shrugged, though there was a hint of pride in his expression. Gotta work with what you've got, right? Some of our best medical breakthroughs came from studying the things that want to kill us. Such as the venom of the fer-de-lance, Krylax said, gesturing toward one of Nathan's vials. A weapon transformed into a tool for healing. It is a level of resourcefulness I had not anticipated. Nathan reached over and picked up the vial, holding it up to the light. Yeah, it's funny. Something that could end you in seconds can also save your life if you know how to handle it. Kind of poetic, don't you think? Krylax nodded slowly. Poetic indeed. After a moment of silence, Nathan stood and rummaged through his pack. Speaking of poetry, he said, pulling out a small leather-bound book, I've got something for you. Krylax watched curiously as Nathan handed him the book. Its cover was embossed with the title, Deadly Creatures of the World, and beneath it, an illustration of a coiled snake and a spider. The alien turned it over in his hands, his sensory appendages brushing lightly against the textured surface. It's a field guide, Nathan explained. Figured you might appreciate a little earthling perspective on all the things that almost killed you. Krylax opened the book, his compound eyes scanning the pages filled with illustrations and descriptions of Earth's most dangerous creatures. This is thorough, he said, his voice tinged with both gratitude and apprehension, and unsettling. Nathan laughed. Yeah, it's not exactly bedtime reading, but I thought it might come in handy. You know, for when you tell your council about the planet where everything's trying to eat, sting, or poison you. Krylax closed the book and held it carefully, as if it were a specimen of rare importance. Thank you, he said, his tone uncharacteristically soft. This will be a valuable addition to my research. Nathan grinned. Just don't say I didn't warn you if it gives you nightmares. The two sat in companionable silence for a while, the rainforest alive with the sounds of chirping insects and distant calls. Krylax eventually broke the quiet, his voice reflective. Your species survives, he said, not because you dominate this planet, but because you adapt to its dangers. You observe, you learn, and you find ways to thrive within the chaos. Nathan nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Guess that makes us both scientists and survivors. Krylax clicked softly in agreement. A fitting description. As the evening deepened, Krylax finished compiling his report, adding a final note: Earth's biodiversity, while perilous, represents a pinnacle of evolutionary complexity. Humanity's resilience within this environment is a testament to their ingenuity and adaptability. Collaboration with this species could yield unprecedented advancements in biological sciences. The next morning, the two stood by Krylax's ship, the alien preparing for departure. Nathan leaned against a tree, his hands shoved into his pockets. So, what's next for you? Krylax adjusted the straps of his research equipment. I will present my findings to the Velecran Scientific Council. It is my hope that they will recognize the significance of this planet and its inhabitants. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You gonna tell them about me? Krylax's mandibles clicked faintly. I will inform them of your contributions, yes. Your assistance was invaluable. Nathan smirked. Just make sure they know I'm not for sale. The alien made the clicking sound that Nathan now recognized as amusement. Your humor is peculiar, but not unwelcome. They exchanged a final nod, a gesture of mutual respect. Krylax ascended the ramp into his ship, pausing at the top to look back at the humans standing amidst the dense greenery of his dangerous, extraordinary world. I will return, Krylax said. There is much more to learn. Nathan waved, a lopsided grin on his face. We'll be here. Try not to get eaten before then. The ship's engines hummed to life, lifting it gracefully into the sky. Nathan watched as it disappeared into the atmosphere, leaving nothing but a faint trail against the bright morning light. As the sound of the ship faded, Nathan turned back toward the forest. He could hear the familiar rustling of leaves, the hum of insects, the distant call of a bird. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. But it was home. And as he walked back to his camp, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. Earth was terrifying, yes, but it was also extraordinary. And maybe, just maybe, that made humanity extraordinary too.